same region. We do have very windy weather on the way, a wind advisory in effect for the Cache Valley, both Utah and Idaho portions on Friday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Wind gusts out of the south-southwest, possibly gusting up to around 55 miles an hour. High wind warning in effect for the west desert of Utah on Friday. Our low tonight is expected to be in the mid-50s and then sunny, hot in the mid-90s tomorrow with those south winds. Weather brought to you by Logan Extermination. It's the time of year when those nasty bill bugs and grubs start invading your lawn. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450, and they will terminate those pesky lawn destroyers for you. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
A building is just a building until it's your building. It's where you work, where you create, where you store your valuable equipment. You take pride in your building, so make sure it's built right and built to last. Northern Steel Buildings will guide you from concept to construction. For your commercial, agricultural, or industrial steel building, visit northernsteelbuilding.com to see their quality work or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concept to construction.
I am voting for Andrew Badger. Blake Moore, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, voted for an appropriation bill that included buying body armor from China and finances a woke agenda in the military. Blake Moore has done nothing to stop the use of vaccine mandates to remove the most experienced warfighters from our military, while he and his staff are exempt from the same mandate. Blake Moore supports rhinos like Liz Cheney, who voted for forever wars while benefiting from the military-industrial complex. Blake Moore voted for budgets that support the open borders policy of the Biden administration, bringing 4 million migrants in just a year and a half. Blake Moore said, "I will never be a flamethrower. I get better committee assignments that way." That is why I'm voting for Andrew Badger. Andrew will stand for the American citizen. Andrew has the experience and education necessary for the job. Andrew will work to protect borders, protect our service members, and protect our children from the woke ideology. Andrew Badger will put America first. Paid for by Aaron Ritchie, citizen.
Hi, this is Drew Allen with Allen Mortuaries. Over the years, thousands of families have planned ahead with Allen Mortuaries. Planning ahead helps you make informed and thoughtful decisions. It also spares your family the stress of making these decisions under the pressure of time and strong emotions. Allen Mortuaries' secure pre-need trust plan can save you nearly 40% versus other plans. Keep it simple, safe, and secure. Go with the proven choice, Allen Mortuaries. Voted best funeral home in Cache Valley in northern Utah. Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
With the arrival of spring, Cache Stormwater Coalition wants to remind us all of 5 simple things we can do to improve our local water source. Pick up and dispose of pet waste. Sweep up and remove loose grass clippings or leaves from sidewalks and hard surfaces. Sweep fertilizers or other lawn chemicals back onto the grassy areas. Wash equipment or vehicles on the grass or at your favorite local professional car wash. And properly dispose of used automotive fluids or dry up and clean up any spills or leaks. We can all make a difference if we do our part. Brought to you by the Cache Stormwater Coalition.
Every year when Father's Day weekend rolls around, you can count on the Preston Elks Lodge Demolition Derby.
This Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Preston Rodeo Arena. Buy tickets on the Preston Elks Derby Facebook or pay cash only at the gate. Just $10 for adults, $5 if you're over 60 or under 12. All proceeds benefit local families in Utah and Idaho. The Preston Elks Lodge Demolition Derby, Saturday at 7 at the Preston Rodeo Arena.
Wow, your cars look so shiny.
Thanks. I've been taking them to Green Gorilla Car Wash. Thanks to their new ceramic application, my cars have never had such a glossy shine.
Sounds expensive.
You haven't heard about their sale? Right now, their Jungle membership with ceramic coating is half off for every vehicle. Instead of $30 per month, I'm only paying $14.99 from now until September.
That's such a great price.
I know, and my half-price membership is good at both Green Gorilla locations in the Valley.
I better head to Green Gorilla now.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Friday on This Morning, America's First News. The cascade of bad news that's worsening what little optimism Americans have and therefore worsening the November prospects for Democrats. Also, the city leaders trying free transit to draw people back downtown. We'll have an update on whether the progressive approach is working. And warning signs for heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Friday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
It's time for the KVNU Utah House 2 debate. This is a Republican primary, and both candidates, incumbent Representative Mike Peterson and former State Representative Val Potter, are here to take your questions, many sent in advance by listeners from the 2nd House District in the northern part of the valley, but also your calls. You're welcome to join us here. We will be taking calls off air to make the most of our time. 753-5868. Before we get started, a quick reminder as well. Tomorrow, June 17th, is the last day to register to vote and receive a ballot by mail. It is too late to change your party affiliation, but it is not too late to register. To get the ballot by mail, you have to do it by tomorrow. It's June 17th at 5 p.m. After that, it would be done in person at an early polling location or on election day at the county clerk's office. Ballots must be mailed no later than Monday, June 27th, or dropped off in person at a drop box, or in person on election day, June 28th. Everything you need to know about voting in these Republican primaries and more can be found at vote.utah.gov. And now, let's get to the candidates. Thank you for joining us again. Val Potter here in studio, Representative Mike Peterson joining us by phone here. As soon as, of course, this happens today, we resolve a technical issue. I'm sitting here looking at an engineer with sweat on his forehead, and Bill, our producer over there, with sweat on his forehead as well.
I usually have sweat on my forehead.
I'm told that there has been some digging in our area on the lines. Not us. We weren't digging, but some construction nearby. And it has caused us some technical difficulties with our phone system. We're getting that resolved. We'll have Representative Peterson with us. Representative Peterson chose to be here by phone today. Val Potter here in studio with me. And again, we have planned a robust discussion between the two candidates. Val, I call this a debate because that's how most people understand these types of interactions. But the goal today is to have, in a very informal way, a conversation with both you and the incumbent in this race about various issues. So we ask listeners to send in the issues that were most pressing to them and were on the tops of their minds. And what was interesting first to me, we got some questions from listeners in this district, House District 2, that had not really come up in any of the other races we've covered or any of the other candidates we've spoken to, specifically questions about education. That was interesting to me. While we're waiting for your opponent for us to be able to get your opponent here, I don't want to make it sound like it's Representative Peterson's fault. It's our fault. But as we're resolving this phone issue, any theories on that? I mean, you know the district. Sure. You live there. You have represented in the State House this district before. What makes education pop up in this race and not the other? I mean, everyone's thinking about it, but it hasn't been a top priority of when we've solicited questions from listeners, except in this House race.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for putting this together.
Well, thanks for doing it.
Thank you for that. As for education, this is a varied district. You've got a section of Logan, and Logan is in a separate school district, and then you've got a fast-growing Cache County district, or portion of Cache County district, with North Logan, Hyde Park, and Smithfield that are growing so fast with a varied population. We are very diverse, and there's a lot happening in education. It's changing fast. There's been issues with education, some good, some bad, and I think you've got the urban side, you've got the rural side coming together in schools. We've got new high schools popping up, and I think that it gives people a lot of churn. I think they're concerned. Some are really satisfied, and others worry about the future because of what's happening. And we need to keep in mind, part is urban, part is rural, and the views of the population in this district are varied.
That was not a planned question for today, but as we're waiting to get this phone system issue resolved, to get Rep. Peterson on, I get frustrated with the legislature. This sounds so petty, I know, but I get frustrated with the legislature because more and more, as Cache County is discussed in committee meetings, in legislative floor debates, representatives from other parts of the state more and more refer to Cache Valley as a satellite community, when we used to be referred to as an urban community or a rural community, not urban. And the word satellite community to me always makes me think of lawmakers in Salt Lake City basically saying, it's an extension of the Wasatch Front up there in Cache.
Yeah,
I know it's petty, but it burns me every time.
It's not petty. It's exactly right. They look. I don't want to say they look down on Cache Valley, but they do view us very differently. They don't realize what we have here. This is a fast-growing population. It's the 6th largest county in the state of Utah, and they try to, dare I say, put us down a bit because they want the resources and the attention to be paid to Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah County. And if they can put Cache Valley in a box and just say, you're a unique county, we'll deal with you differently. I totally reject that idea.
Sure.
We need to make some noise.
I agree. I'm on board with that, and I try to do it on the show here every day. But again, for a lot of listeners, when I brought this up before, have sort of joked with me that it's such a small thing. But it is, I think, indicative of some of the mindset that you see. By the way, a few listeners chiming in here saying that they wanted to call with a question, and they're getting the all circuits busy as well. We know this, of course, happens today, but we also are unable to get through. Representative Mike Peterson chose to join us today by phone. We're also unable to get through to him at this time. We're resolving that. We will have it resolved, so just be patient. But Val Potter here in the studio. We could go over this as well really quickly. A lot of confusion about this because in 2021, a law was passed to set a March 31st deadline, and a lot of people are understanding that as the registration deadline. But that was the deadline for changing your party affiliation registration. If you are not registered, if you are registering for the first time, maybe you were removed from the rolls due to inactivity and things like that, you can actually still take care of that up until 5 o'clock tomorrow and receive a ballot by mail. After that, you have to do it in person at the county clerk's office or an early polling location. So again, 5 p.m. tomorrow is the deadline for registering to vote and receiving a ballot by mail. After that, you will have to do it in person and cast a provisional ballot if one, or not have it mailed to you, basically. You can actually register out in person up until Election Day, by the way, at the county clerk's office or an early polling location. But to get one by mail tomorrow at 5 p.m. and to check your registration, update your registration, register to vote for the first time or after a long time of absence in the elections, it is vote.utah.gov. All right. We're officially underway at this point. Apologies to our other guest here, Representative Mike Peterson, the incumbent in this race. Representative Peterson, of all days, they're digging in our neighborhood. And we tried to call out before the hour started, got all circuits busy. We're all calling our own phone lines, and listeners are calling our phone lines. Everyone's telling me we're getting all circuits busy, but we got around it thanks to our creative engineers. So,
well, good for you. I was thinking about the blessings of post-COVID. And it sort of failed for a minute, so glad we got back together.
We should have set this up by Zoom because then we wouldn't have had this problem in the first place. But I try not to think about Zoom as much now that the pandemic is on the downhill side. But appreciate you taking some time to join us. Val, I already thanked you for joining us. I know when you're campaigning, there are a million things you'd probably rather be doing than sitting here talking to me from 5 to 6 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, knocking doors and things like that. But we're happy that we're able to get this happening. And both of you, we've discussed this already, but both of you are familiar with the format today. I've been calling a debate, but the plan here is to have a discussion about various things in order to give listeners a bit of a contrast between the two of you. And so we've grouped these by topic, and many of these questions we received were very similar to each other. And you could put them in maybe 3 or 4 different categories. And so I grouped them all together and kind of paraphrased them as best I could. And we'll get started here. There's no specific order to any of this. Representative Peterson, where Val and I have had some time to chat while we were resolving this phone issue, maybe we'll let you get started first here. But the first topic, and honestly the topic we got the most questions from listeners in this district about could be classified as growth, everything related to growth. But they ranged from questions about transportation, where's everyone going to drive, housing, where's everyone going to live, jobs, where's everyone going to work. People in the district are obviously aware change is coming. And so that leads us to our first question, to you, Representative Peterson, and then to you, Mr. Val Potter. What can the state do and I would add myself, what should the state do or shouldn't when it comes to housing prices and rapid development? We hear from state leaders all the time, we need more housing. What can the state do and what should or shouldn't the state do?
Yeah, that is the $50,000 question. And by the way, are you hearing echo?
No, it sounds great on our end.
Okay, I'll try to move forward and not pay attention to that. You know, yesterday I was in a committee meeting, and I think it was the Department of Workforce Services told us that there's 50,000 people moving into Utah. Well, we have a supply and demand problem. Clearly, we need more homes for all these people who are moving to Utah, and specifically here in Utah, in Cache County. One of the things I think that's important that we ought to consider is that, you know, we have a tendency with our schools to send all students to the university. That's the be all end all. And I mean, I'm probably not one to. I probably shouldn't say this, but you know, here I am with a PhD. But I'm saying one of the solutions I would say is that we try to help kids find their way to the applied technology centers, places where they can not only learn cosmetology and welding, but they can learn to be plumbers and electricians and building contractors. I also think that in regards to housing costs, you know, just a minute ago, we had a little sewer problem in our home this morning, and I had a local plumber in, and I asked him about this issue, and he said that one of the big problems is that the state passes these bills that require more stringent building codes. He's got an issue because the water faucets that he typically has been installing are no longer allowed, and this happens over and over again. I've talked to many contractors who've also told me the similar issues where they say, look, we keep getting told we need to change the materials we use, the way we build things, so they're more efficient. But really what happens is it makes it so that the homes are more airtight. There's all these costs, including higher costs, including more difficulty for people to get them. So, well, this is really I would say primarily a local issue, but I think there are those couple of ways that I think the state could be involved, helping to send kids beyond just the universities, and for us to not do so much in the way of mandating how folks build homes.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Peterson. And same question to you, Mr. Potter. What can, and I would tack on personally, what should or shouldn't the state do when it comes to housing prices and rapid development?
I spent a couple of years in the legislature on the Housing Affordability Commission. I've heard just recently from one of the consultants that we worked with, reading this, it says high housing costs relative to incomes are the single greatest risk to Utah's income an economy long term. And I do believe that. I think with the interest rates going up, I think the supply and demand is going to change, and I think the housing prices are going to drop some. However, there is a limited amount of supply for housing right now. Land is an issue. Housing is going to continue to be a problem. I tried when I was in the legislature, and I think I was successful. Senator Anderegg, and I passed a bill, SB 34, and the bill required the cities to consider 3 options of a list of 23 that we gave them. And I don't like any kind of mandates from the legislature to the local government, but this is one we felt it was reasonable. Just a couple of those options was rehabilitate old housing, allow accessory dwellings in the cities, allow for higher density within the cities, change the parking requirements, single-family homes to be considered, or reduce impact fees. Those are a handful of the things, and I think that would help some. It's not the magic cure. There's some major issues. The state can do some, but I think the local municipalities are where it's at, and they need to make some decisions to allow for reasonable housing within each of the cities. Everybody's different. Everybody needs to do it differently. The state can oversee that, but the state should not step in.
All right. Thanks to you both. Again, the next question is coming specifically, this is word for word from a listener, but I will tack on one thing because it was interesting. During the interim meetings that took place yesterday and the day before in Salt Lake City, the Utah legislature meeting in interim, there was a lot of talk of road and transit projects and funding, and of course many lawmakers on the Wasatch Front focused on what's happening with an expansion plan for Front Runner, for UTA. Also, UDOT has some big projects going everywhere throughout the state. And it reminded me of this question. The question from a listener in House District 2, someone that one of the two of you will be representing in the next legislative session. And they asked a pretty short and blunt question. Is the state funding road and transit projects in northern Utah enough? And I thought of that as they had this debate yesterday. There is a lot of focus there on the Wasatch Front. So, are we falling to the wayside a little bit? Where Representative Peterson started with the last question, we'll start with you this time, Val.
I would think there are some issues with that. I had some concerns when I served on the county council that we were not getting enough of the state money. However, I feel better now. The Transportation Commission makes decisions on state funding, and we've got Rhonda Menlove there serving, and Rhonda's very well connected, and she makes a lot of noise, and she gets what she wants. I really respect her.
No one ignores Rhonda.
Nobody does. She's going to do a good job for us, but also we need legislators that'll make some noise with the Transportation Committee and with the other legislators to make sure that we're getting our share of it. Also, the counties have the Council of Governments dedicated tax for transportation, which certainly helps with our transportation issues, but transportation is a huge issue and problem, and it's one that we all need to be working together to make sure that we're getting what we need for the future, and that it doesn't bottleneck and cause us major problems.
Okay. Thank you, Val. And to you, Representative Peterson, same question. Is the state funding road and transit projects in northern Utah enough? Are we getting enough priority?
I think Val is exactly right. Clearly, we don't get the funding that we need, and I think if you ask any of our local delegation, they'd all tell you that we're frustrated with the idea that we get what's left over after the Wasatch Front takes care of all their needs. But I am glad to say I've spoken in the last several weeks with members of our House leadership, and I'm confident that things are going to change. That there will be more dollars coming here to the Valley in the coming future. So. But currently, you're right. We don't see what we need.
Sure. It's on many fronts, unfortunately. Our listeners have heard me gripe about that for forever. All right, next question. Again, reversing the order with each question here. Would you oppose or support the state getting more involved? This has been discussed. No direct action taken as I understand it, but discussions have happened recently involving the state at least contemplating getting more involved in quote, standardizing housing and zoning policies at the city and county levels throughout the state because of the housing shortage and growth issues. Would you support or oppose the state getting more involved in standardizing zoning and housing policies? And we'll start with you, Representative Peterson.
I think you and I spoke about this some time ago, Jason, and I got to tell you, no, I'm not very supportive of the idea of the state getting more involved. I feel like really the only time the state should interfere is when people's liberties are being trampled. And that primarily, I look at it this way. We've got cities from Cove and Richmond up north and down to St. George and in the south, and we don't want them all to be the same other than the amount of snowfall they get. We need to back off. They have elected mayors, elected city councils, and other, and let them do their business. Let them be accountable to their constituents. Let them take not only be accountable, but also take input from their constituents. Let them run their cities the way they want, and the state should interfere very little.
All right. And to you, Mr. Potter, would you support or oppose the state standardizing, for whatever that might mean, housing and zoning policies throughout the state?
I would definitely oppose it. Every city in the state is different. The city councils and mayors of those cities, with some input maybe from the counties, but they decide what belongs in their city and what doesn't. The citizens are very direct and open with the city councils and mayors, and I know that. I served there. They'll tell you how they feel, and they don't want somebody outside their community telling them what to do. One of the concerns I had in this last session is there was a bill that was proposed, and this was crazy, and I worked with the League of Cities and Towns to work with some legislators that were presenting this. They proposed that planning, zoning, city councils, county commissions that made land use decisions would be required after passing those decisions. Before it becomes law, it would have to go to the state ombudsman under the direction of the legislature in the state before anything was legal in the community. And to me and to the cities and the counties, that was atrocious. That was horrible. And we fought, and that didn't even make it to committee, and we were grateful for that. But that was something that was proposed which didn't make sense. It wasn't thought through clearly by the legislature, and that was an issue, and I certainly would defend that.
All right. Thanks again to both of our guests for being here. Again, this is a conversation, debate between two candidates in a Republican primary vying for the nomination to represent you if you live in Utah House District 2. This was known as Utah House District 3 up until the redistricting process last year. Now House District 2, the northern part of the valley. The registration deadline, again, is to get a ballot by mail is tomorrow at 5 p.m. After that, you must do it in person at an early polling location or a county clerk's office up until Election Day, June 28th. And also a reminder, ballots must be mailed by June 27th, if not turned in person on June 28th or at a drop box at city office locations throughout the valley. We'll continue. These questions, again, have been sent in by our listeners. Appreciate our listeners making me look smart. I get to ask these questions. But again, listeners have supplied all of the content for today's debate, and I hope you'll stay with us. Again, Representative Mike Peterson, the incumbent in this race, and the challenger, former Representative Val Potter, here in the studio. And we'll keep the conversation going right after this quick look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Jason, KVNU News, brought to you by Roof Rescue. 5-year-old Ben Earl is entering the Summerfest Plein Air contest. He may be the youngest artist to strut his stuff at Logan's big summer arts event. After registering with his mom Dixie's help, he jumped off the steps of the Summerfest office and let out a yell, according to Lori Jackson, who signed Earl up for the event. He will enter as an amateur. Jackson said they expect about 60 painters to enter this year's contest. Dixie said that she sets up all the paint stuff the night before and he starts painting as soon as he gets up in the morning. For 38 years, Summerfest has been known for its high-quality regional arts and crafts, great food, and quality entertainment. It's free to the public, And again this year, it's being held at the Cache County Fairgrounds beginning today and continuing Friday and Saturday. Up until last year, the event was held at the Tabernacle on Main Street, but due to the renovation of the historic building, it was moved to the fairgrounds. This year, they've scheduled 136 booths and 24 food vendors. Last year, they had more booths because of the carryover from 2020 when Summerfest was canceled because of the pandemic. The Ada County Sheriff's Office says police in the small southwestern Idaho town of Star shot and killed a 39-year-old Wednesday morning. The Ada County Critical Incident Task Force is investigating the shooting. Star Police Chief Zach Hessing says officers were responding to a report of a man who had stolen a gun and was likely intoxicated when they encountered the suspect in a parking lot. Hessing says the man was uncooperative with police and was armed and that he was shot a short time after the officers made contact. The officer who fired the shot and the two who witnessed it have been placed on administrative leave. The slain man's name was not released. And businesses in some of the gateway towns leading to Yellowstone National Park are worried about the coming weeks and months after severe flooding closed the park. Officials say the park's southern part, which features Old Faithful, could reopen as soon as next week, but the north end, which includes Tower Fall and the Bears and Wolves of Lamar Valley, could stay closed much longer, perhaps the rest of the summer. KVNU weather, mostly clear, warmer, upper 50s overnight, and then a wind advisory in effect for Friday for the Cache Valley of Utah and Idaho for very gusty south to southwest winds in northern Utah valleys, possibly gusting up to around 55 miles per hour during the day tomorrow. And then on Friday night, still some winds, and then windy on Saturday. That's still with us, and a slight chance of rain showers Saturday afternoon. High temperature in the mid-80s. KVNU weather is brought to you by Beaver Creek Lodge. Have you ever spent time enjoying beautiful Logan Canyon? The best way to enjoy the wildflowers and beautiful mountain scenery is on a side-by-side rental or horseback rental from Beaver Creek Lodge. Make reservations, call 753-1076 or go to beavercreeklodge.com. For more details on these and other stories, visit cachevalleydaily.com.
This is Mark with Roof Rescue. Most of us don't think about our roofs very often until you see shingles on the ground or water drips through your ceiling. Keep your roof in tip-top shape to protect your home, your biggest investment. Roof Rescue uses only the highest quality materials with experienced workmanship guaranteed to last. Even if you were denied by your insurance company the first time, a free re-evaluation can be made. Visit roofrescueusa.com to schedule your free consultation in Cache Valley and surrounding areas. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
Moonlight Diesel is the kind of place that values hard work and honesty. They never put money ahead of people and are proud to be family owned and operated. Serving Cache Valley for over 26 years, Moonlight Diesel is growing and busier than ever, and they're hiring. So if you or someone you know shares a passion for diesel trucks, they would love to hear from you. Stop in during regular business hours or email Julie at moonlightdiesel.com. Start a career with some of the best and most knowledgeable diesel experts in the industry. Email Julie at moonlightdiesel.com.
Summer is just around the corner. Don't crank up your AC unit before getting it serviced. Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning is the team you should call for quality on-time service. If your system needs replaced, think York. York has the best warranties in the business with affordable financing options. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning at 752-7272 or stop by their showroom west of DI. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
Comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Back to KVNU's For the People. Midway through our Utah House 2 debate, this is a Republican primary playing out, deciding who will receive the nomination as the Republican candidate heading into the general election, and then the winner on to represent the northern part of Cache Valley in the Utah State House. A quick reminder for listeners, tomorrow by 5 p.m. is the deadline to register to vote. online at elections.utah.gov or vote.utah.gov and receive a ballot in the mail. After that, registration must be done in person at an early polling location or the county clerk's office. Ballots must be mailed no later than Monday, July 27th, or turned in person on July 28th or before that at a drop box, which you can find at city offices all around the valley. Everything you need to know at elections.utah.gov or vote.utah.gov. And now, back to the candidates. Thanks again to both candidates for joining us today. Again, we have with us incumbent in this Republican primary, Representative Mike Peterson, and former state representative for this district, Val Potter. Questions, again, have been sent in by listeners. If you send in a specific question, what I've tried to do is group like questions together and paraphrase them in my own words or in radio words to make them as short as possible. We did have some technical issues there. They're digging in our area, and we actually lost our phone system at the first. So, unfortunately, we didn't get to start where we'd planned to with opening statements. And Representative Peterson, we were able to get him on and continue on the fly. But let's kind of reset now, if we can, to both of you, if you don't mind. And as if we were just starting, though we've covered a lot of ground already, let's allow you both some time for a minute or two of opening statement, your elevator pitch to voters, if you will. And Representative Peterson, again, because you got shortchanged a few minutes at the start of the hour by the telephone issues, we'll let you go first with your opening statement. Have we lost him? I believe we've lost Representative Peterson. We'll try and rectify that. We'll flip this. Okay. We will instead go to former Representative Val Potter and let you start with your opening statement.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Again, I'm Val Potter. I served on the North Logan City Council, and as mayor, I was on the Cache County Council and in the state legislature. I passed 29 bills in the legislature, most of those focused on the needs from Cache Valley in law enforcement, public education, and local government, which is my campaign platform. Mike is a nice guy. I've known him for 30 years. But now for a comparison between us, I serve the people, I take the input from the people, and I make the best decisions for Cache County. I know my community. I have a problem with my opponent's statements on the Constitution and being more conservative than I am. I've sworn an oath to the state and U.S. Constitution 6 times as an elected official. He's done it once. I'm very offended when he says I'm not conservative or follow the Constitution. I follow the Constitution, and I get things done. I've served in the Republican Party as a delegate and party officer for over 30 years, 12 years in the State Central Committee. Mike is in my precinct and told us in the caucus 4 years ago that it was the first time he had attended. I've managed and balanced city, county, and state budgets and cut unnecessary government programs and state codes. That's conservative. Mike talks about it, but I get it done. In the paper and online and during our election, he talks over and over about his scorecard, and this is what Mike is basing his decisions and votes on and why he thinks he's conservative. He's one of the most no votes in the legislature. I base my votes on the input from Cache County.
Now we lost Val. Sorry.
Is it back on?
It is one of those days technically here.
It is. Okay. Let me just say, I base my votes in city, county, and state on the input from Cache County, not any extremist scorecard. That's bothersome to me. The scorecard Mike's talking about is the grassroots organization. It's a small organization with one guy, Don Guyman, and his decisions on the bills that he likes or doesn't like. Libertas is a libertarian lobbying organization, and the Platform Republicans is the other one. Platform Republicans have one of their board members that's proud of the fact that they attended the insurrection in D.C. on January 6th, and that to me is very bothersome. Maybe not to somebody else, but that to me is bothersome. Mike says in the paper and on his flyers that he has a list of defending your rights. Those aren't his bills. The legislature did those bills. He just voted. Today's paper talks about donations from outside Cache Valley. Since the March 26th county convention, Mike's received $17,500 from outside Cache County. I've received $6,400. So my question is, who is influenced by the outside money? The job as a legislator is to balance the budget of the state, protect rights, and ensure that Utah and Cache County remains the amazing place we love to call home. I'd love to serve you at the Capitol, and I wouldn't be running if the job was being done.
All right. Thank you to you, Mr. Potter. And we have Representative Peterson back with us here as well in this now hour-long debate. Again, we've covered a lot of ground, but we're resetting a bit since we had technical issues there at the first. And Representative Peterson, I'd asked as we came back from the break there, since we didn't get to start where we planned to, for both of you to give your opening pitches to voters, your elevator pitch, if you will. So a couple of minutes for an opening statement, even though we're halfway through here, if you don't mind. Take it away, Representative Peterson. No? There we go.
He was there.
I hear him.
I'm still here.
Okay. We're resetting a bit here due to the technical issues with the phones at the start. Neither one of you got to do your prepared opening statement, so we're starting over halfway through. Mr. Potter gave his opening statement there, and if you would kindly oblige us with your elevator pitch to voters.
Sure. And can you hear me now?
You bet.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, I'll be quick. Serving as a state representative has really been a highlight of my life. When I ran 2 years ago, I promised to restore not only your voice, but to restore your conservative voice into the state legislature. And this last couple of years, I have answered thousands of emails, texts, and phone calls. I was thinking this week I've had issues with folks have asked me about the DMV problems they've had, or with insurance company claims, or property taxes. And it's been a wonderful thing to try and be their voice, to be a representative for them as I've reached out and helped them navigate different divisions and things. Last week I was asked by somebody why I talk so much about the Constitution, suggesting that the Constitution deals with more federal issues. But, as I think about it, the Constitution as well as our state Constitution are really about securing the rights of individuals. And I printed off, I just want to read just one little paragraph. Article 1, Section 1 of our Utah Constitution says, all men have the inherent and inalienable right to enjoy and defend their lives and liberties, to acquire, possess, and protect property, to worship according to the dictates of their consciences, to assemble peaceably, to protest against wrongs. It goes on. I'm not going to go any further, but when I vote, I think about those principles. Even here in Utah, sometimes the government's growing and becoming more intertwined in people's lives. I vote for and sponsor bills focused on making sure that citizens retain their rights. And I have to tell you, voting to reduce taxes, voting to protect property rights and parent rights and personal health rights and freedom of speech, it is really a highlight of my service. And it's wonderful to be able to stand up for individual people's rights.
All right. Thank you, Representative Peterson. Again, opening statements there from both candidates. One more time, this primary playing out June 28th. Ballots are already out there, and voter registration deadline is tomorrow, 5 p.m. in order to receive a ballot by mail. After that, you must do everything in person. Directions on how to do that and more at vote.utah.gov. Both candidates joining us for this debate, and we appreciate them making the time. Moving right back into the questions here, and then we'll wrap things up with closing statements before the top of the hour. The next set of questions we got could all be grouped into the topic of education. And to both of you, I thought this was an amazing question because it's never expressed so bluntly, but someone in your district is away with words. And the question is, with population growth projections, is our K-12 education system sustainable? And I would add myself to that, is the funding mechanism sustainable? Take it away. We'll start with you, Mr. Potter.
Okay, that is a great question, and
I love how blunt it was.
Yeah, the difficult thing is that it's education funding is based on the income tax, so it's as sustainable as income tax is. Income tax fluctuates up and down. It's the responsibility of the legislators to make sure that that income tax is going to education, and if it isn't sufficient to take care of the needs of education, then they've got to make proper adjustments in the state budget to make sure that education is funded. So the question is yes and no, and it's up to the legislators to make sure that education is a high priority.
All right. And same question to you, Representative Peterson. Is the K-12 education system sustainable, considering the growth projections here in the Valley? And I would add myself, is the funding mechanism sustainable?
You know, I think about this a lot because, Jason, I was a high school counselor at Logan High School. My wife is a speech pathologist, has been for some 20 years in the Cass County School District working with special needs kids. We think about education issues every day. This is our lives. And as Val mentioned, Article 10 of our state constitution says the legislature shall provide for the establishment and maintenance of public schools. And when I think of that, we are obligated to fund our schools. It would be unconstitutional, and really it would be immoral for us not to take care of our schools. So knowing that, is the funding system in place? It is. We've got this constitutional guarantee that says income tax is going to be spent there. And I think that just knowing what it says in the Constitution, that we will maintain public schools, not as Cadillacs necessarily, but certainly not as a 1972 Vega. We've got to make sure that our schools and the whole system works. That it's a fairly new car that gets good gas mileage. We want it to be efficient and effective. So I think if we'll go back to the principles contained in our own state constitution, we will find that we have the funding. Our even the growth is going to be sustainable in our system.
All right. And a great follow-up question also from a listener in House District 2. A very simple question. Should we pay teachers more? To you, Representative Peterson.
That's an interesting and a very complex question.
Sure, it sounds simple, right?
Yeah, it sounds simple, but you think about our state has 2.7 kids per family versus 1.9 nationally. We definitely have larger families. This last year, the legislature increased salaries by some 6%. We passed bills like the paid professional hours for educators, the grow your own teacher and school counselor. The state is spending hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know if the state should pay more, but I would say this: local school boards certainly have the authority. And we're all about local control. School boards have the authority to increase teacher pay if they believe that it's prudent. All
right. This is same simple question to you, Val.
Sure.
Should we pay teachers more?
And the simple answer is yes. You look at the loss of teachers that start teaching and within 5 years they're gone. That's a terrible thing. We need to encourage more of our junior high, high school kids to consider education for a career. But in doing so, we need to make sure that the salary and the benefits are commensurate with other careers so that these people are interested in education and continue and stay through to retirement. We want good teachers, clearly, but we want teachers that will stay and feel like that they're being adequately taken care of, realizing that there's a package there. There's the benefits, there's the salary, and then, of course, the pension, which is rare in most industries.
All right.
So, yes.
Okay. Senate President Stuart Adams has, I think 3 years in a row now, said that this is the session of the tax cut. And he says that they plan to keep that up in the upcoming session as well. I know, regardless of which of you wins this primary, and then there's the general, and you go down there, you're one voice, or if you want to call all Cache Valley's representatives, a few voices among many. This won't be a decision you get to make on your own, but if there was a magic wand that you could wave and you could make any specific tax cut happen in the upcoming session, what would it be? Start with you, Val.
I've thought a lot about this. The tax that I would cut, and one that I've heard from so many people about, is cutting the sales tax on all food. I was never in favor of that tax, and I do not like that tax.
Okay. And to you, Representative Peterson, if you could wave a magic wand, make every other lawmaker there agree with you on the Hill during that session, is there a tax cut that would be top of the list for you?
It would be eliminating the sales tax on food. In fact, that's why I helped to gather signatures a couple of years ago to eliminate the tax on food. And I think that, by the way, there's a growing chorus in the legislature that's in agreement with that.
That is nice to hear. This is a fun conversation to have with you both. And I appreciate you both making the time to do it. We will be getting to closing statements here. But let me also say to our listeners, appreciate you all sending these questions in. We didn't get to every one, but we got to every topic at least. And maybe I'll save this one, and maybe both of our candidates can email their answers to me, and I'll post them on our Facebook page. But I'd wanted to ask you both if there's a question you want to ask each other. So after tonight's debate, think about it. Send me the answers, and I'll post them to our Facebook page. Again, hoping that our listeners walk away from this with a contrast between the two candidates in this primary. I love primaries. They get us thinking, they give us choices, and they keep everyone on their toes. And shout out to Shelley, chair of the Cash GOP, who is right now grumbling that I said that because primaries are headaches for party leadership. But man, is she doing a good job. Thanks to the Cash GOP, by the way, for helping us organize and promote this today. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in. And without further ado, we'll wrap things up here with, a couple minutes, each of you, a bit of a loose format here for closing statements. And since we had some technical difficulties that sort of shortchanged you at the start of the hour, Representative Peterson, Mike, you can go first here with your closing statement, your final pitch to voters.
Thank you, Jason, and thanks, Val, for having this happen. We've said before, there's not always honesty in politics, but I wanted to just say I've kept my promises to restore your voice, and not just to restore your voice, but a conservative voice in the state legislature. And I promise that's what I will continue to do. It's not by accident that groups across the state, conservative groups who rate legislators, whether it's CPAC or Grassroots Utah or Americans for Prosperity, Utah Taxpayer Associations, or Liberals, they always rank me near the top. Conservative, a very consistent conservative. That's why Senator Mike Lee endorses me. And I would just ask that if you're looking for a conservative voice in the Utah State Legislature, that you would vote for me. Thank you.
All right, and thanks to you, Representative Mike Peterson there again with his final pitch to voters in a closing statement. And now to you, wrap us up here, Mr. Val Potter.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Jason. And thanks, Mike, for being here. Let me back up. This is one of the questions you gave me, and I have to answer it. It says, if you could single-handedly repeal one state statute, what would it be? It would be Justice Reinvestment Initiative and the Juvenile Justice Reinvestment. I do not like those. The sheriffs, the chiefs of police, despise them. They burden the cities and counties with criminals released without penalty. So throw that out.
Sure to be an issue in the upcoming session.
Exactly. I hope so. It's been whittled back a little. Again, I'll tell you over and over again, I said it earlier, I've worked as a conservative. I believe the Constitution and I follow it. I don't like to be called a non-conservative because I am, but I get things done. I'm endorsed by the Utah Public Employees Association, Governor Gary Herbert, who I worked with as a legislator. The Utah Agricultural PAC, which is the farmers. Those are the guys that actually are out there doing it, and they put money in to help me out. The UEA also. In my last election, I was endorsed by the Utah Superintendents and School Boards Association, the Sheriff's Association, and Chiefs of Police Association, as well as the Manufacturers Association. I promise as a legislator to listen to concerns and act to solve problems, as I've done before in the city, county, and state elected offices, to keep Cache County informed on what's happening in the legislature and get your input on discussions and decisions. I will be a strong voice of support for Cache County at the Capitol, and I will work for you, stand up for you, and answer your questions and resolve your issues. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. thanks to both of you for taking the time to do this today, and again to our listeners for sending in not only great questions, but for being here with us to listen. If you're just tuning in and missed this, we will make this available via our podcast service, the Podcastics site. Just simply search for KVNU's For the People. Subscribe there, never miss an episode. I'll make sure the link gets posted to our Facebook page, and we'll share it with Cash GOP leadership as well so they can send it out. Thanks again to our candidates, not only for filing to run, but also for taking the time to engage with voters at events like the recent Meet the Candidates event, and also debates like this here on our airwaves today. Our guests again have been incumbent in this Republican primary, Representative Mike Peterson, and former Representative for House District 2, Val Potter. The questions, again, supplied by listeners, we didn't get to them all, but they were great, and I appreciate everyone helping us out to make sure this was a robust conversation. You can visit both candidates' respective websites. Vote for Mike Peterson, and that's Peterson with an E, voteformikepeterson.com, and for Mr. Potter, vote Potter, Potter, votepotter.com. I've linked to both on our Facebook page. And again, thank you to our candidates, to our listeners, to Cash GOP leadership for help making this happen. And that is our time for this debate and the show today. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.